Is this the beginning of something longer term?
I think over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of really rapid increases, then very rapid decreases, then sort of a slow consolidation of the market. I think we're seeing another slow consolidation of the market now, and we're likely to see like a very sort of moderate but positive price consolidation over the next quarter.
So what's going to make the difference?
I think now in the market you have a lot of regulatory clarity that didn't exist even a year ago. And you have a lot of sort of different types of order flow. So rather than just retail, you have some institutional. And as that institutional flow increases, particularly with the rollout of new institutional products, you'll see more of a level off and a consolidation in the market.
Caroline, you talk to a lot of investors. Do they seem to think we've hit bottom?
I think a few are starting to say it. I mean, very notable VC investor in the space. It's Barry Silbert, of course, well renowned in the digital currency area. He's saying, look, we have hit a bottom. In fact, the bears have run out of Bitcoin to sell. He's been getting in with his own money, he said, in the last week. And many feel that this could consolidate up to a much higher price at the moment. I mean, we've had another billionaire, that's the likes of Mark Lazary, saying, look, this could go to $40,000. But look, we could also see a sell-off. It's interesting that at the moment I'm looking at Bitcoin in particular, of course, the biggest crypto asset out there, currently is up about 18% on the week if you look at a GTV chart for that. But it's one of the only ones that holding really onto its gains of the week. If you're looking at Ethereum, we're seeing Ether sell off to a certain extent today. We're seeing Ripple come back down off of the highs that we saw earlier in the week. And volatility is likely to still be there. Arthur Hayes is the CEO of the crypto exchange BitMEX saying, look, current bull run may yet give way to a $5,000 yet downturn, but in the long term, we're heading higher. Check out maybe 50,000 in the future.
Peter, what is the trading volume that you're seeing and new account activity, if you will?
I think right now you're seeing a pretty slow retail market, and historically the market's been led by retail. You are seeing a pretty big uptick in the institutional market, and that's a lot of the reason why Bitcoin's outperforming. Institutions, when they're coming into the crypto market, are usually buying Bitcoin first. And so I expect Bitcoin to outperform relative to the other major cryptos over the next 6 months. But a lot of that has to do with the infrastructure you have to build to enable some of these institutions to come into the market.
And you've been adding new institutional services. How are they working and where do you see expanding?
I think we see expanding into the institutional market in the US. So a big focus right now is bringing some of the institutional grade products into the US market. The challenge with institutions is it's a very long cycle. And so while there's a lot of talk about institutions coming into crypto market right now, I don't think we'll see the full effect until mid-2019.
And what's the appetite for risk? I mean, we were talking about crypto insurance yesterday. There's still a lot of concerns, you know, especially if you overstate your insurance. There's still a lot of risk involved.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk involved. I think it'll maintain a pretty small part of people's portfolio, particularly on the institutional side. That said, the crypto market is still pretty small. When you benchmark it against any major asset class, the crypto market, even Bitcoin itself, is still a pretty niche market.
Now, Caroline, there's so much hype about crypto assets and the underlying technology, but now we're also starting to talk about the rise in the enterprise value of these assets. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think it was notable that in IBM's earnings, for example, this week, they were really talking up what they offer in terms of blockchain, in terms of offering enterprises, particularly the banking industry, abilities to build private blockchains. And they say, look, we're better than anyone else. I mean, it's still a tiny portion of their revenue, but it's notable that they're really trying to talk up this part of the business. I think also we're starting to hear from other key players within the crypto space. I mean, Hyperledger's CEO, it's interesting, given the name Hyperledger, they're saying, well, the hype's actually coming out. They're seeing the enterprise value really starting to rise. They're saying, look, diamonds are being tracked by blockchain at the moment. They say trade finance is being actioned by a consortium of banks have done 7 real trades now in terms of trade finance cross-border. And interestingly, they're even like checking the supply chain of marijuana, would you have it? So clearly this is starting to be the underlying technology that's working, not just the crypto assets that everyone wants to talk about.
Peter, you've brought in a new head of security. What trends are you seeing in attempted hacks on your systems and others?
Yeah, so we're basically under constant sort of perpetual attack and have been for years. And I think for us it's important to have someone internally who's really world-class to build that team and that function over the next few years. I think the security attacks only get worse. You know, I learned to sleep a few years ago. But yeah, it's definitely a huge part of the business and a huge part of our budget.
And talk to us about the kinds of attacks you're seeing, and what are they after?
You know, the kinds of attacks I can talk about, we see everything from DDoS attacks, we see attacks from state-level actors, we see, you know, phishing attacks against our user bases, operational security requirements, data center requirements. There's really almost no end to the security vectors.
Are there any particular state actors like Russia that might be more active than others?
You know, it's not usually the ones that people guess, but that's something that we'll have to be a little tight-lipped about.